Yo, picture this. A dude born clutching a blood clot, abandoned by his own people, left to starve in the wilderness. Fast forward a few decades, and that same kid becomes the most feared name on the planet. We're talking about Temujin, better known as Genghis Khan. But before the Mongol Empire steamrolled half the world, things were mad different up on those steppes. So buckle up, 'cause we're diving into a story of betrayal, revenge, and one family's wild journey from nothing to everything. All right, so check it. After trekking through some brutal cold and covering serious miles, this crew rolls up to a Chinese city with a pretty gnarly gift. Genghis Khan, the big boss of a bunch of nomads from the frozen north. They dragged this poor guy through the streets of Zhongdu, the capital of the Genghis dynasty. Now here's the backstory. A generation back, Genghis' predecessor, this cat named Kublai Khan, straight up wrecked the Jin and showed zero respect to their emperor. So the Jin emperor? Yeah, he's got a long memory and an even longer grudge. He decides to make an example out of Genghis, nails him to a wooden donkey, and executes him in the most brutal way possible. But before he kicks it, Genghis manages to get one last message out to his people. A messenger hauls ass north with the Khan's dying orders, up at the edge of the Gobi Desert, where the sand dunes turn into dry grassland. You've got the Mongol homeland. It's this wide open space that goes golden when the sun hits it just right, with mountains casting shadows everywhere. The people live in these yurts, basically felt tents you can pack up and move when you need fresh pasture for your animals. Life's tough out here, no joke. Winters are absolutely freezing and drag on forever. These folks believe spirits run everything, living in mountains, rivers, clouds, you name it. Only the shamans can communicate with that spirit world, doing their chants and covering their faces to get wisdom or kick out evil spirits. They worship Tungri, the will of heaven, but honestly, they're usually getting pushed around by their neighbors down south. Here's the thing. Just 30 years earlier, most of the steppe was controlled by the Liao dynasty. Then the Khitans got there but's kicked by the Jurchen, who set up the Jin dynasty. After that, the steppe turned into this total free-for-all with a bunch of Mongol and Turkic ruling families making alliances, getting married for politics, and straight-up brutalizing each other for revenge and loot. This area used to spawn massive empires like the Xiongnu way back and some huge Turkic kingdoms. But now, those are just dusty memories. The Jin dynasty keeps their borders safe by basically stirring up drama on the steppe. Get this. Genghis had been setting up his daughter's marriage to a leader of these nomads called the Tatars, and those same Tatars turned around, captured him, and handed him over to the Jin for execution. Talk about backstabbing, right? That kind of betrayal? The Mongols ain't gonna forget that. So the messenger finally reaches the Mongols with Genghis' last orders. Grab your bows and arrows and keep fighting until your fingers are ground down and nothing. Basically, get revenge no matter what it takes. The guy they picked to carry out this revenge is this warrior named Kublai Khan, and dude is absolutely terrifying. They literally say about him, he springs from the earth where demons live, and his voice makes mountains sound weak. That's the kind of hype this guy's got. Answering Kuchlai's call are allied Mongol clans and the nobles from his family, the Borjigin, including his nephew Yasujai, who's kind of a wild card. Every dude who can fight, whether he's a teenager or an old man, gets called up. Some guys who've got money rock-padded armor with metal and leather, but most just fight in their regular clothes with handmade arrows, and these crazy powerful composite bows made from horn, sinew, and wood. These people aren't soldiers trained in some barracks. They're warriors forged by living in one of the harshest places on earth. See, life out here makes you tough or kills you. Families are constantly taking care of livestock, sheep, goats, yaks, oxen, sometimes camels. With jobs loosely split between men and women, Mongol families mostly eat dairy stuff. Cheeses, yogurts, and this fermented mare's milk called arag. They'll throw in some mutton and wild game for meat when they can get it. But the real secret weapon? Horses, man. These kids are literally tied into saddles from the time they're babies. So riding comes as natural to them as walking. They practice hunting with bows on horseback, play archery games, and do all kinds of training. There's this thing called a nurge, basically a massive hunt where riders circle a huge area and coordinate moving in together to trap all the animals inside. So every single day, just living their normal lives, these Mongols are becoming masters of mounted archery without even trying. But what really gets them fired up isn't just skill. It's the violence, the family members they've lost, the disrespect they've suffered. All that builds up into this burning hatred for their enemies. After Ambagai gets killed, the Mongols rally behind Kuchula and ride out for war. Their horses might not look like much at first glance. Kind of short and stocky, but they're incredibly well-trained, tough as nails in extreme weather, and got stamina for days. Each warrior's got several horses, which means they can attack hard and retreat when they need to without ever getting caught. So here come the Mongols, hooves pounding the ground as they descend on Tatar camps. They sit in their saddles and rain arrows down on their enemies, capture whoever they can, and loot everything in sight. With the Tatars back on the menu, Kuchula and the Mongols also go after the Jin dynasty. They probably hit vulnerable border areas, trampling through settlements, killing people, dragging others away into slavery. They steal livestock, burn down houses and farms after taking everything valuable, leaving nothing but a trail of ash and blood behind. Obviously, that's going to bring some serious payback from their enemies. Out on the steppe, you always need allies. One day, Kuchula and Yasuji run into this prince named Togor from the Kariid people who just got kicked out. The Kariid Khans think they're the supreme overlords of the whole Mongolian plateau. Their actual power is not quite that big, but they're still pretty strong. Togor wants his late father's throne real bad. So bad he recently murdered 2 of his own brothers. But then his uncle Gurkhan attacked and drove him out. Still, Yasuji sees something in his brother killing Togor, maybe just the kind of ruthless drive you want in an ally. Kuchula warns Yasuji straight up, "Yo, being friends with this dude is a terrible idea. This man killed his own brothers and got their blood all over his hands." But Yasuji doesn't listen. He and Togor become Anda, blood brothers, an alliance that's going to tie their 2 families together forever. Yasuji rallies his warriors, attacks Gurkhan's camps, and helps Togor take the Kariid throne. Some of the ruling Kariids are actually Christians from the Nestorian or Eastern Church, left over from old missions that came from the West way back. But even the people on the Mongolian plateau who claim to follow religions from far away still believe in what the shamans say and the will of heaven. And according to later tradition, it's heaven itself that decides Yasuji is going to play a major role in the cosmic plan. After raiding Tatar families and stealing their herds, Yasuji rides back to his pregnant wife. At least a year before this, Yasuji had come across some newlyweds, and he was so struck by how beautiful the young bride Hoilan was that he violated the sacred rules about wedding parties, attacked the groom, and kidnapped the crying girl to be his own bride. Messed up, right? Now he's heading back to Hoilan, who's about to give birth to his son, a kid who's supposedly born clutching a blood clot. Kinda ominous if you ask me. Later, people wrote about this child's birth like it was destiny, when the divine would decided from the beginning of time that a lucky, mighty, and powerful one would be born. The hand of divine power gradually prepared him in his ancestors' bloodlines until, step by step, he was brought close to perfection. Since Yasuji had just captured this Tatar leader called Temujin Yuj, he names his son Temujin. But here's where things get rough. The kid's birth doesn't bring any good luck. Around 1164, Kuchula Khan gets taken out by the Tatars. Blades and arrows, the whole deal. When he dies, all the loyalty he had dies with him too. The Mongols lose power. Blood keeps spilling in fights with the Tatars, and while Yasuji proves himself as a brave warrior, he's no great and prosperous Khan. Times are so tough that Yasuji has to basically loan out 9-year-old Temujin as labor just to secure the boy's future marriage to a chieftain's daughter named Borte. With that arrangement locked in, Yasuji heads home. On the way, he stops at a feast being thrown by the Tatars. The hosts recognize him and poison his food. Over the next few days, Yasuji gets weaker and weaker until he dies. Most of what we know about Yasuji comes from records written later by the Mongols and their subjects, histories that pump up his family's virtue, trash-talk their enemies, and make these years seem super fated and destined. So honestly, there's a lot of legend mixed in with the facts from these early days before the empire. The real truth The Mongols aren't some rising power. Tons of them are actually slaves of the Jin dynasty, captured and sold off in constant warfare. Yasugei's 2 wives end up widowed with Temujin and his 6 siblings, and then their own clan straight up abandons them. It probably looked like this was the end of Yasugei's bloodline. They'd just die out in the wilderness and be forgotten. And the Mongols would stay as just some subject people on the outskirts of a Chinese dynasty. Nobody, and I mean nobody, predicted that this kid called Temujin would one day take the name Genghis Khan, and the whole world would meet the Mongols. So there you have it. From a poisoned father and an abandoned family to the birth of the most legendary conqueror in history. Temujin's story is just getting started, and trust me, it only gets crazier from here. If you want to know how this kid went from fighting for scraps in the wilderness to ruling the largest empire the world had ever seen, stick around. This is just chapter 1 of an absolutely insane ride.